Okay. It does not look like this one is connected to the previous one, but we'll see. Otsar, this is Mishlei 21:20. Otsar nechmad vashemin binevei chacham uksil adam yaval enu. Okay. Anyone want to try translating? I'll do it. Otsar nechmad vashemin. So a.
I was about to.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. A desired storehouse. Right.
Interesting. Yeah, I see. Yeah. Desired. There's another term that I feel like I
coveted.
like. Coveted is actually more accurate. Yeah. So let's say coveted or desired. Coveted. What do we say with Chava when she saw the eights that it was nechmad lahaskiel? Desirable is fine. Okay. Coveted or desirable. I think that's what I was looking for. And how do you translate otsar?
Storehouse.
Okay, storehouse.
Is otsar not like right?
That's eitzah. Yeah. Coveted or desirable storehouse. Yeah, go ahead.
And oil in a, I don't know what a neve is. Is that?
Yeah, neve is an awkward word for. So ArtScroll always translates it as abode, home. So in the abode, we could just say home, or dwelling, I guess. Dwelling. Yeah, if you look at Mitzus says neve is mador, which literally means dwelling. Okay, of a chacham. Okay, go ahead.
And a foolish person. I'm
gonna go translate just because usually you would just say ksiel, a fool.
Yeah.
Fool of a man.
Yeah.
Right. I guess. Yeah.
Will swallow it. I think.
Will swallow it. Yep. Okay. So that's that. Yeah. And Matsustian says lashon blia means to swallow. Okay. So Sadia Gaon says otsros hachemda v'hadoshen. Binevei hachacham. Okay, so the storehouses of desire, and I think doshen is like abundance. Abundance are in the abode of a wise man. Uksil mibne adam yovdeno, and a fool. This is a weird thing. Out of mankind. A foolish person, I don't know why he says out of mankind, will yovdena, will like waste it or destroy it or squander it. Okay. Targum, let's just ignore Targum for today. I'm not in the mood to do Targum. I was going to look at all the words in the Jastra, but I'm not in the mood. Okay. ArtScroll. A desirable treasure and oil endures. So they add the word endures in the abode of the wise, but a fool of a man swallows it up. Okay, fine. All right, that they're adding the word endures. Okay, but so I'm not going to take that into account now. Living Law says precious treasure. Oh, so they're taking otsar as not storehouse but treasure. Okay, so let's do that as a, because it is sometimes used as treasure. Otsar is like what we would say like bank accounts. So bank accounts could be putting the emphasis on where you store your wealth, or it could be referring to the wealth itself. Yeah. Okay, and then in the home of a wise man, but foolish is the person who swallows them up. Okay, fine. So they're using ksil as yeah, whatever. Everyone's struggling with this ksil adam thing. Okay. Alter says, oh, that was okay. Yeah. Alter says rare treasure. Rare is a little weird. And oil in the wise man's abode, but a foolish man swallows them up. Okay, fine. So let's just stick with this here. Okay. So what are our questions or problems?
Well, I guess like what's the relationship?
Yeah. Oops. What is the hold on a second here. What is the relationship between the two halves? And just to add to that here, so I think there's two ways to read that a fool of man will swallow it.
Mm-hmm.
How are you understanding it? What does the it refer to?
The treasure or the. Right, I guess that depends if you're calling it treasure or storehouse.
Okay, right. So it's definitely referring to the okay. So let me put it this way. One way, I'll do it in colors to make it easier. One way is to say that it's referring to the, how do you translate storehouses of and oil. Okay, the other way is it's referring to the storehouses and oil that are in the house of the chacham. In other words, is it saying a chacham has this in his house, but if a fool had it in his house, he would swallow it? Or is it saying that the chacham has this in his house, but then the fool is going to swallow the chacham stuff? So in other words, like, let me see if I can translate it into a concise way of asking the question. Is the fool swallowing up the otsar, nechmad, vashemin in his own house or in the house of the chacham? And that's why I think this is like, I'm putting this as part of your question, because is it describing an interaction between the two, or is it just a normal Mishleic thing of here's a scenario, this is how the chacham behaves, this is how the fool behaves? Yeah. Okay, what else?
Are the is the Ozer Nechmad and the Shemen two examples of the same thing, or
Yeah.
are they two completely different things?
Okay, so let's do this in the broadest way possible. Okay, stupid Windows 11. Okay, what are the Otsar, Nechmad, Vashemen? Sorry, and Shemen. Okay, so are they merely two examples of the same thing? Or are they two different things? And if the latter, what is meant by each? Hey, Mati. Yeah.
Brought Mati.
Oh, nice.
I think I brought his key out.
Well, I saw him first, so.
Yeah, I actually tell him, like, how you going to the Mishlei shiur? He's like, I'm going to. I'm like, it's happening.
All right, so we just started, so we'll just I'll catch you guys up.
All right.
After the share comes in. We're on pasuk 20. Yeah. Okay. We're done with 19. Yeah, finally. Okay, so Otsar Nechmad Vashemen Binevei Chacham Uksil Adam Yavalano. So okay, Otsar is, I'm gonna actually just pause the recording because since we just did this. Okay. Yeah. So the request was made to make a chart. I forgot how I did it. I think something like this.
Yeah.
Okay, so a storehouse. I'll make it narrower in a second. Or a treasure. Okay.
That's the
Actually, no. Let's do this. Just saying, coveted or a desirable storehouse.
It's chidush in your podcast. Why does this sound so familiar?
Treasure.
This is a chidush.
This is in the Gemara you're doing?
Well,
Yeah,
not like this.
not this,
Also,
but
the word
like-
oats are.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, fine.
And we were
Yeah.
talking, we were arguing if
It's
we
treasure or
should say,
storehouse.
yeah, treasure or storehouse.
Yeah, interesting. Is oh, sorry, and I'm gonna actually add in Art Scrolls thingy, even though I don't know where they got it from. Endures in the home, in the dwelling of a wise man. Okay, this part is gonna be the same. And a fool of a man will swallow it. Actually, you know, that this part is also the same. And a fool of a man will swallow it. Okay, so now we go like this, and we go like that. Delete entire row. Yeah, and we go like that, and like that. Good. Okay. All right. Yeah. So that way you can pick and choose. Yeah. Okay. So then we have Sadigon didn't really add much new. He just says storehouses of desire and abundance. He translated oil as just abundance. Okay. It might be because you can say, so shemen means oil. Shamen, fatty, in biblical Hebrew means like fertile and abundant and like rich. In fact, I never thought about that we say rich when it comes to oil and we say rich when it comes to wealth. right?
Like Asher, like that's one of like his like
Right.
attributes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the oil. Okay, so we only had 2 questions so far. So one question is, what's the relationship between the 2 halves? So it's unclear. Is the fool swallowing up the Otsar Nechmad Bashemin in his own house, or is he swallowing up the Chacham's what do you call oil and Otsar? In other words, is it describing an interaction between the Chacham and the Ksil, or is it describing like what the Chacham does in his house and then what the fool does in his house? You see the question?
To compare and contrast.
Yeah, is it just comparing and contrasting, or is it describing a scenario where the Chacham is interacting with the fool's wealth? The fool is interacting with the Chacham's wealth.
Oh, well, then that makes sense with the endures thing.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And in fact, I think it might be where the article is getting endures, because Yivalenu means that it's going to be gone.
Right.
The Chacham implies that it stays,
Right.
And our second question, which Isaac just asked when you guys were walking in, is what are Otsar, Nechmad, and Shemin? Are these just 2 examples of the same thing? Like you got a lot of money, you got a lot of oil, or are they 2 different things? And if it's the latter, what is meant by each? Otsar Nechmad is like a very generic term of like, I have like, coveted bank accounts. Shemin is a very specific commodity, and also we should also add, and what is the Shemin? I think we had Shemin in a recent pasuk, right? Yeah. Is it, hold on. Is it like fragrant oil that you anoint yourself with? Is it like oil? Right. Yeah. Like that. Or is it oil that is used to make food like fancy? Is it oil as a commodity? I think those are going to be the 3 possibilities, right?
Couldn't it also not be literally oil?
Yeah, it could also not be oil, right? Or is it like Sadigon said, just like richness? Yeah,
Kind of just that metaphor.
So going with the richness, and still preserving the qualities of oil that can go bad, or commodities like gold, for example.
Right.
Gold is one of the reasons.
Or Bitcoin. Yeah.
Gold is coveted, or even Bitcoin, is because they have an enduring quality.
Right.
They're durable metals or assets.
Right.
So it makes sense that it makes honestly sense that that word is interchangeable between storehouse and treasure,
because it lasts.
And enduring because it lasts.
Right. Yeah, and that's also an interesting thing, because they both have the quality of they can last, but they could also both be consumed.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I should also translate this. Okay.
Or spent, like it doesn't have to be consumed in the
right. Consume is also another possibility. Oh, does this mean I need to modify the chart? Yeah, I do. Okay, so let's go below and let's go. What's the most efficient way to do this?
We even say that in Spanish, like when you say he spent all his money, that's the way you can say se lo comió, like he ate it all.
Right. Yeah. Splitels, that's the one I was looking for. Okay, and
do like a backspace on the other one, or shift tab, I think. Okay.
Let's just go like that. Will swallow it or consume it?
I mean, swallow makes it sound like literally food.
Right.
So it could be.
So it's the literal and
could be something else.
Yeah. Consume, and I'd say spend would be in the same thing, like you were saying with consume. Yeah. Okay. There we go. Satisfying. Okay. All right. What else now? Other questions?
Let's see.
We have like what a coveted storehouse slash.
Yeah, we kind of rolled that question all into one.
Oh yeah.
What are they? But it should be treated as a separate question. Yeah.
Oh right. So are they merely 2 examples? Meaning, why do we need both?
Right.
Right.
We kind of said this when we were translating it. It could be a minor question. What is Ksil Adam? Right? Why not just Ksil? Like a Ksil is a fool. You don't need to say a Chacham. You never see Chacham Adam, or a Mavin Adam or Tzadik Adam. Just say like we have terms for these. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, what is meant by binve?
Yeah.
Like we translated it as like abode or
right.
dwelling.
So what is meant by Neve Chacham? Okay. Why focus why focus on his home
Right,
dwelling?
this pasuk doesn't necessarily seem to need, it doesn't seem like
Correct.
that's crucial, so what's
See,
it saying there?
what this leads me to believe, to me, that question points to the fact that we are describing, well, let me say, what could it have said? It could have just said, Otsar Nechmad Veshemen Shel Chacham, or like whatever belongs to a Chacham,
Right.
but a seal of a man swallows it. So the fact that it's saying in the household of a Chacham, to
Right.
me, suggests that they're interacting. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Right, and if we didn't have that, then we're just be like, Chacham does this.
Exactly,
Seal
yeah.
does this.
What do you
Yeah.
mean that they're interacting?
That it's describing a fool who's in a Chacham's house and interacting with his
Fool's
wealth.
going to use all
Exactly, use up all the
Chacham
Chacham stuff. Yeah.
This is for the seal or for the chacham? Who's the audience?
Oh yes. Who is the audience?
So
Who is the audience of this pasuk? And I would think it would be for the Chacham.
Right.
It'd
If
be
there's
like
a
a-
relationship.
if there's a relationship,
Chacham.
Right.
If there isn't a relationship.
Then it could be a person who could go in either direction.
Right.
Yeah.
So I took
Yeah.
a different meaning for the house.
Yeah.
That they're focusing, they're mentioning the house because the Chacham in the house, it's the Chacham's house, but the house is really what makes it the preserving aspect. It's like he chose to put it in a particular place.
Yeah.
He has a designated makom for it.
Right.
And it could be, and it doesn't have to be literal. It could be where you place your values or priority. Or it can be literal, like in a yeshiva.
So this actually raises a question, which I might need to look into academic sources for, which is where did people keep their otsar and their shemen? Did they keep that in their house?
Right.
And if so, then this is just saying a normal thing. Or if they would ordinarily keep it in a separate location, and then this is describing he keeps it in his house, then that's an unusual thing. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Is it just remembering from Mishlei? Is it how far do they go in using this as only a metaphor for completely ethical ideas, or is it, and how much of it is also good advice for, is it too much to say we're just talking about your heart, depending on the heart of a wise man is something that is a lasting place because it's filled with good
right.
ideas, or is that not
right? So the way Mishlei is definitely taken metaphorically by other people, by the meforshim. Our approach is we try to go interpret the pasuk as literally as possible first, before going to metaphor, because once you go into the realm, the danger is once you go into the realm of metaphor, you could just make up anything you want and project it onto the pasuk. So by sticking to the literal, it keeps us disciplined, and then after we get an idea from the literal meaning, then we can then speculate about the metaphors within parameters, that are more grounded.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
What goes, if it's a storehouse, what is being stored in a storehouse?
Yeah. Okay, that's good. Also, yeah. You know what? You've convinced me, Mati. I think we need to list storehouse as a separate question. What is an otsar? Otsar nechmad. Okay, so first of all, what is an otsar? What is it storing? And then what does, and you know what, let's say what
makes it not?
yeah. So let's go like this. What?
How do you switch to Hebrew so fast?
No, shift alt.
Oh.
What does nechmad mean and imply? Okay, and then what are the in conjunction with each other? Yeah, okay. Splitting up into questions like that. Okay, good. Yeah, I feel like, and then also let's just add our usual question to this one. Who is the audience of this pasuk, and what is the practical decision-making advice? And the reason why this is part of the same question is because depending on who you say it's for, it might be different, decision-making advice. Okay. So I think those are the questions. Shall we think? I'm just going to delete Sadigon. I think ours is similar enough. Sorry, Sadia. Yeah. Okay, so let's think about this. Boom. Boom. Any ideas?
I mean,
Okay, that's the starting. Well, what I guess, what seems to be, what jumps out to you as being like, I feel like I know what this is talking about?
Consume it versus, save it.
Yeah. Okay, good. So consuming versus saving definitely seems like a thing that a fool would do, right? And oh, you know what we didn't ask? We didn't ask this. Let's ask here our usual question. What are the definitions of chacham and ksil in this context, right? And just to as a reminder, so Mishlei has technical jargony definitions, of which there are several. Like we have our own definitions, we have like Rabbeinu Yonah, whatever. But then sometimes it just means like a generic, like good Mishleic actor, bad Mishleic actor. So ksil, in terms of our go-to definitions, just in case we want to like rely on that. So I think Yaakov was the one who coined the term. For Rabbeinu Yonah's definition of ksil, a veteran pleasure addict. Okay, meaning not just like everyone like seeks pleasure, but ksil is a person who has basically made his life revolve around indulging in pleasure. So that's why I use the word veteran. So what was it?
So then, like, let's say a coveted treasure is like bounty or food yield from the field or something.
Yeah.
And a coveted man will like jar it, put it away, put it in the storehouse.
Yeah.
And a fool will just be like, I want this fresh fruit right now.
Okay, good. Right. So let's work just again methodologically. There are two approaches to to Mishlei, to any pasuk Mishlei when you have an intuition, right? One is you take the intuition and then you develop it into something, regardless of whether it sounds like a chidush or not. And then after you've developed it, you seek, okay, what's the chidush? The other one is you kind of like force yourself to look for a chidush at the very beginning. So I think Mati's is the interpretation that flows from just like thinking about fools and chachamim. Fools will consume what they have very quickly, okay, and not save it. And chachamim will save it, and presumably, what is the purpose of saving it?
Keep it for a rainy day.
Okay, one is keeping it for rainy day. I think chachamim will do even more than that.
Build on it,
right? Is like invest it, right? So I'll give you an example from my ancestors, which is of a foolish thing. Is that so? My great grandfather was one of the first Chinese to come to Hawaii. Okay, and this was before there were white people there. To Kauai, so he came to Kauai. There was just the local Hawaiians, and then the Chinese came in. And Kauai had this sandalwood, which was very fragrant and very valuable. Yeah, it's a good smell. I don't think I've ever smelled actual sandalwood, right? Like sandalwood scented stuff, So the Chinese came in and they did what China still does to this day. They just harvested it all and then just moved on, So sandalwood went extinct on Kauai, So what would you do if you were? So that's a foolish thing. You have something that could be the source of enduring or greater wealth, and then you just squander it for immediate profit. A chacham would find out the proper ratio of like harvesting it and then planting it and then harvesting it and planting it and then have a sustainable. This is your field, no pun intended, right? Is sustainable agriculture, right? And therefore keep it generating wealth. Yeah,
right, and that's such a good example for this. Also, it works with the fact that like there's contrasting and things, except for what we're talking about being the treasure itself. It's not itself changing, right? It's the same treasure, right? But it's a different treasure in the hands of different people depending on how it's handled. Yeah. And it's interesting even that it's a storehouse. I was a little confused at first, like a storehouse in the dwelling. I'm like, a storehouse already is a type of dwelling for things, right? In another dwelling, but I realized, okay, the second dwelling is more of a status thing. Again, it's in his domain, in his like possession, you could say, like it's really his. That's called his storehouse. Yeah. And so those things are changing, but it's really about like the effects. It's almost like money or that in the hands of one person can become more. Yeah. And in the hands of another, even though we're talking about the same item itself, Yeah. So are you saying that the dwelling has to do with status? I missed that. Yeah, the dwelling is a way of pointing to. It's like emphasizing that it's like part of his estate. Yeah, it's part of it, and it's an extension of him and how he manages things. Okay, so that's a good interpretation. I had a slightly different interpretation, which I think is just closer to what Mati was saying. Yeah. Not that it's better or worse, but that not only does the chacham have the
otsar and the shemen, but he keeps it in his house, meaning that okay, there's certain people. Let's take another example that is, I don't really know the world of oil, but let's say like you have a vintage bottle of wine, right? Like a really good bottle or bottle of scotch, right? So there are people who are who would not be capable of saving it if it's right there, like they'll just, if it's there, it's going to be too tempting and they'll break it open, or they'll open it up. So the seal is going to be like that. It's like he can't keep it, and he certainly can't keep it in his house. The chacham will be able to have it like on hand, or maybe a more contemporary example is there are people who, as long as they have access to their bank account and their bank account has a lot of money, they will just spend it. The only way they could control themselves would be if they somehow like entrusted it into the hands of someone else.
Or that's why they have savings accounts, checking accounts.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. So the fact that it's in the dwelling of the chacham means he is interacting with it, and still he's able to exercise restraint. And again, this is a very Mishlei. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So on that, you could almost say you could be the same man. You could be, if it's in my, let's go with the savings account.
Yeah.
Me, as in Chizkiah's savings account, it's in the abode of a wise man. But it's in Chizkiah's checkings account.
Right.
So it's not even talking. You could be. It's like not two different people.
Yeah.
It's all about like.
Right. You could relate to as a chacham or as a seal. Yeah. Correct. Yeah.
Which, for the record, I actually don't have a savings account because I don't need one. So
Oh. Yeah. No. So similar to me, like I don't know. I was never taught how to use a credit card.
Yeah.
So I relate to a credit card the same way I relate to a debit card, and I don't accumulate credit card debt. And there are people I know, when I first discovered that there are people who will like just accumulate mass amounts of credit card debt, I was like, really? That's yeah, right. So
you are supposed to pay it off immediately. It's a good thing.
Yeah, right. It's my credit score is pretty good. Yeah. But I was gonna say also that restraint, the point of exercising restraint, consuming it. I don't remember what I was gonna say. Yeah. Oh, and I think you could also say nechmad is contributing to this also, that it's desirable, and despite it's again, this is the same word that it uses with Chava, just to show you the context here. It's the first time it appears in the Torah, and it works out really well. So Chava, when the snake tempts her, she sees Vatera ha'isha ki tova eitz lamachal. So the woman saw that the tree was good for eating. V'chisava hu le'inayim, and it was desirable for the eyes. V'nechmad ha'etz lahaskil, and it was, how do they translate nechmad here? This is the word I was searching for before. Desirable, take pleasurable. Okay, pleasurable maybe. To become
precious.
intelligent, precious. Yeah.
Because pleasurable sounds good too, but I think it's a little bit elementary to read it. Like she was like, wow, that looks tasty, as opposed to the whole idea is that it's like the eights of das.
Right. Well, it says nechma lehaskil, to become intelligent.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
So what I'm saying is to say just that it looks pleasant, it kind of doesn't make it seem like.
Yeah, you need a word that captures the intellectual appeal. Yeah. Okay, so do we have an idea here? I feel like this is enough of an approach that we could. So what are we not answering?
We're not answering who the audience is.
Well, so I think you're answering who the audience is, because you're saying it's
Yeah.
directed at a person who has wealth, right, that they have access to.
Mhm.
And if you are a fool of a man, then you'll swallow it. And if you're a chacham, then you'll save it.
Right.
And it doesn't, so it's talking about a person who can conduct himself in either way, right? Yeah.
So maybe the formulation is it's not talking about the treasure in Chacham's house and then the fool interacting with that,
Right.
but just that it's talking about the case is where you have let's take what you said, a very expensive bottle of scotch,
Yeah.
and you have it in your house,
Yeah.
you have it in your scotch cabinet,
Right.
And so basically it's saying that when you have a case like this where you have something valuable and it's in your possession and
Yeah.
you're interacting with it, it's not just in your possession, but it's something that you see,
Yeah.
a chacham is going to be able to do that and interact with it and have that in his house or whatever it is, and be able to save it.
Yeah.
And for whatever, all those reasons.
Yeah.
And Xil is not gonna be able to do that.
Yeah.
And he's just gonna swallow it.
Right.
I don't know how you apply that to like what's the practical advice.
Yeah. So, and that's kind of what I want to look for now is like, to me, this is a good approach for the pasuk, but I still am not getting a chidush from it.
Right.
Like it just sounds like this is the chacham and the ksil that we know, So what's the chidush? And I just want to say one other possibility is if this same idea works. Okay, no, it's not the same idea. Sorry. Let me say one thing that does work for our idea. You could say otsar refers to money, which is like a form of liquid wealth that you can convert into anything. And shemen is a commodity of wealth. So it's just talking about two types of things, So like for our equivalent would be otsar nechmad is like a large bank account, and shemen would be a valuable object or a valuable resource. Another approach you can take, which is along these similar lines, is if it is talking about an interaction, then I'm picturing a scenario like a chacham is really good at making and saving money, but someone in his household is a ksil. So let's say like if you want to go with the previous pasuk, it would be like a wife who can't control her spending, or let's say a son who can't control, who has access to his parents' credit cards or whatever, So there it would be saying some idea, then it would sound like advice for the chacham that
be wary of that.
Yeah. And I think there is a fantasy that if I am a chacham and have good spending habits and saving habits, somehow that's going to ensure my wealth. But someone who is part of my household who has bad decision-making habits, I need to take active measures against that,
Right.
So what we're looking for right now is a chidush, okay, in either approach, in the separate, track approach and in the interacting in the one household approach. So again, let's just restate the two approaches, right? So if it's talking about one person who could become a chacham or a fool, it's saying basically, if you have access to wealth and valuable commodities and you're a chacham, you'll save it so that you can, at the very least, save it for a rainy day. Greater than that, make it into a source of wealth that will grow. And you'll be able to do that even if it's in your household and you're interacting with it every day. You'll be able to exercise that restraint. Okay. And again, this is the point I was going to make. This is a very Mishleic way of talking about wealth. It's not saying that wealth and shemen are bad. It's just saying if you want more of it, you should interact with it, judiciously, right? And if you're a ksil of a man, which we haven't explained why it says ksil of a man, you will consume it right away, and you won't be able to keep it or invest it, and then you're going to lose out totally, And it's a foolish thing to do in the framework of the ksil. Ksil wants maximum pleasure, so you could get way more pleasure if you keep it and save it and invest it, And again, this is the big mistake with the lottery. Lottery winners, right? They usually give you the option of you get it in installments or you can get it in one lump sum. So that's mistake number one, is most people take it in one lump sum, which makes them prone to being able to spending it. And then the second mistake is they don't invest it. If you just took all that, I looked at the statistic. Hold on a second. How many lottery winners go broke? This is an insane thing.
Oh yeah, that's crazy.
70% of lottery winners end up broke within 7 years. Okay, and we're talking millions of dollars, right?
And they destroy, not to mention their family life.
Yeah, and they become unhealthy. A lot of them become they fall into depression or they become suicidal. So it's insane. And again, it's because it has been it's in their abode. They have it and they can access it.
Just a modern day example.
Yeah,
this puzzle.
exactly. Yeah, right. And what was I going to say? So then the second mistake is if you just took the lottery winnings and you invested it and it just lived off the interest, so you would be removing the temptation,
Right.
and it would be sustainable. That would be the thing to do. Yeah.
So it sounds a little bit like the chidush is, don't think that just because you have good ideas of what to do with money, that you're automatically on your own a chacham.
Yeah.
What makes you a chacham is your ability to keep the right environment.
Yeah.
And so that it's not, in a place where it's too accessible in some form or another. And I think you can apply that even to it's a greater I think on discipline in general, of understanding there's a ratios and a season for things as well. Even with I don't know, Nida, right?
Yeah.
It's literally like, I mean, it's a lot, you know, it's like 2 weeks almost or whatever. It's like almost half the month that like something is off limits
Right.
to you.
Right.
So
I feel like this, you probably could come up with a good example of this with crypto,
Yeah.
because I feel like I don't know. I only listen to people who talk about crypto. I don't actually like, but like a lot of these currencies like are subject to this kind of foolish decision.
yeah,
Right.
for sure.
And it's
Very
the people.
liquid.
Yeah, they're very, very liquid, and there's also spikes where people will be tempted into.
So there's something called leverage trading.
See, I was just trying to poke him until he gets an example.
There's something called leverage trading where you can collateralize, and it'll allow you to borrow against what you were collateralizing.
Yeah.
And you long something, assuming, which basically allows you to make more of it back than you could have on your own
Mhm.
without, let's go multiplier.
Uh-huh.
And people get wrecked doing that because it's so, you can make a lot of money.
Right.
But what happens is these big like rich guys on purpose they like wait till they see that there's a lot of people putting longs.
Yeah.
And then they sell,
Mhm.
and it just dumps everything.
Right.
And there's a lot of things like in the crypto market where what they try to do on purpose to keep currency stable is they incentivize people to lock it away.
Mhm.
Say, all right,
There you go. Right.
put it in
Lock it
here,
away. Right. Not in your
and-
household.
And for some of them, the ones that are actually locked,
Yeah.
it could take 5 days, 11 days, 2 weeks,
Yeah.
or there's even a penalty for removing it.
Yeah.
So you're getting a reward, a steady like interest reward, but if you take it out, it could even be.
Yeah. Oh, that reminds me. This is in terms of historical, the best donations that have ever been made. Have you ever heard about Ben Franklin's donation to? I think something. I don't even know what it's called. Ben Franklin's donation to Philadelphia. This is awesome. Okay. So Ben Franklin, less than a year before his death on April 17th, 1790, Ben Franklin added a codicil or addendum to his will. In it, he bequeathed 1,000 pounds sterling, or what would have been the equivalent of $4,000 to the cities of Boston and Philadelphia. The money, he wrote, was to be handled in a very particular way. For the first 100 years, each of the 1,000 pounds of sterling would accrue interest and be used to fund loans for young tradesmen starting out in business. Franklin, who had become a printer as a result of a loan given to him, valued resources for apprentices. At the end of the 100 years, the cities would take 75% of the principal and spend it in public works. Boston, he suggested, should invest it in a trade school. Philadelphia could possibly pay for water pipes connected to the creek, whatever. The remaining 25% would be left until another century had passed, at which point the cities and their respective states could spend the funds in whatever way they wished. But after 200 years, what would the economic needs of the modern world match up? Or would the economic needs of the modern world match up with Franklin's wishes? So if you look at how much this actually ended up making, hold on here.
Yeah, $4,000. I think it's an incredible amount too.
Yeah. So in 1887, Philadelphia's investments had left them with a total of just 70,800 compared to Boston's 327,799. Okay, hold on a second here. I'm just trying to get to the punchline.
There we go.
Yeah. As a second century of Franklin's fund drew to close, both cities were looking to profit greatly from his generosity. Boston's trust fund was worth 4.5 million. Okay, Philadelphia's was worth 2 million. Most of the money, roughly 76% in the state of Massachusetts, would go to the state. Yeah. So like what he was trying to do, so like this $4,000 became millions, but he made it like he locked it away as a condition because he knew that there were lots of foolish people, especially when it comes to politicians spending money, right? That if he made it so it's illegal for you to touch the money for 100 years and then another 100 years, it's just going to grow, So that's like a chacham on a societal level,
That's awesome.
Yeah. Way to go, Ben.
Global thinking.
Yeah. Hold on. Inspired by Franklin's philanthropy, in 1936, multimillionaire John Holden used 2.8 million to fund a series of trusts, some of which weren't due to be released for up to 1,000 years. Okay, that's a little extreme. You're assuming America's gonna be around then. Before the idea was leveled in court and converted to trust that paid out yearly instead of disrupting the economy in the distant future, his donation to the state of Pennsylvania alone would have been worth 424 trillion. So it's not that it's a bad idea. It just seems like an unrealistic execution. Just scale it down, man. Like
Just do 100 years.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for 2.8 million in 100.
For Ben
I know, right?
He's like upping the ante.
Yeah.
Do 1,000.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's a little.
He also hated the eagle.
The Ben Franklin. Yeah, he wanted the turkey though, right?
The turkey.
Yeah, it's a little lame, but yeah. Okay, so let's look at, since we're planning to continue this tomorrow, let's just look at one of the meforshim today. Let's look at Matsudas, good old Matsudas, the Ben Franklin of meforshim. Otsar v'gomer. Derech hachacham, it is the way of a chacham. Le'etzor ba'otzaro devarim nechmadim b'shem and tov. Okay, so to store in his treasure house precious things and good oil. So he's learning that the storehouse is not money; it is like a vault where you're keeping precious things like oil. Okay, lehiskayim le'esatzorach. Okay, to be saved until a time of need. So this is like Yosef and Egypt, right? While it's still in his hand, he won't let it leave his hand. He'll just swallow it. And he doesn't worry about a time of need. Okay, so this is a different mistake than what we were talking about. So he's focusing on the time of need, not on the generation of wealth. So when the fool has money or wealth, he can't picture himself ever being in a state where he is in poverty. So in other words, if he could envision himself, if you think to the future and think there's gonna be a time when I'm not gonna have money and I need to save this, that's the rainy day, Svara, that you were saying, right? That I need this for a rainy day, then he'll keep it or he'll set some aside for the rainy day. But the fact he defines this is a classical mistake people make. They take this version of themselves and then they project it forward and view themselves as always being like that. Again, people, if you want to do a little metaphor today, people make this mistake with learning, right? Like I've seen this, a lot of you guys make this mistake of they set their sights on a career that involves a lot of investment of time. And they say, well, okay, I'm going to compromise how much time I learn in yeshiva so I can make a lot of money and then retire by the age of 40 or whatever, And what they do is they don't realize that if you don't invest in developing your skills and attachment to learning now, by the time you become 40 and you've been working for that long, you've not been learning, so you will be a different person.
And you won't even, and then you won't be like, now I'll start building this.
Exactly. Yeah, it's too late, and you won't even have the interest. So again, it's that mistake of taking the version of yourself now and then projecting it going forward. People that make that mistake with dating, right? That they view the dating or the honeymoon phase as just the rest of the relationship is going to be the same thing, just going forward. They don't realize no, you change and your emotions change. So you have to plan for that different version of yourself that's going to be in the future and the different circumstances. Here too, the lottery winner has the money, never thinks that in the future there's going to be a financial crash or whatever, and I'm going to be in a state where I need money, and therefore he doesn't save. Okay, so let's summarize what we have here, and then we can come back to this tomorrow with meforshim. So we had I think 3 ideas. One idea is it's just talking about how the chacham, when he has money and commodities, will save it and exercise restraint because he knows that it will grow in the future, and the fool will just consume it all now. And it would still be nice to get an additional chidush out of that. Second idea, which we didn't really elaborate on, is if the chacham has this wealth and someone in his household spends, he has to take measure. He can't think my saving and my money spending qualities will ensure my wealth, because if someone else has access to it, you have to build a fence around that. That's like Ben Franklin and his endowment. And then there's the rainy day mati idea, which is that if you have a lot of money, you have to remember that there could be just like you went up, there could be a time when you have a downturn, and you need to save the money for that time and not just consume it now thinking that you're always going to be wealthy.
The same as the first idea?
In the first idea, I was focusing more on the investment for the wealth to grow. And that's a different type of argument to make to the fool. That's saying, hey, fool, if you were to only keep this, you'll be able to generate even more money and more pleasure in the future. Don't you want more pleasure? And this is a much harder argument to make to the fool, which is, okay, you're rich now, but there could be a financial crash. That's easier for him to dismiss, So it comes down to the same principle, but I think it's 2 different appeals. Yeah. All right, let's stop here for today.
I got it.
Yeah. All right, good.
Thank you.